Hey, Donald and Geezer and Junior, good to see you guys. Hey, let me tell you what I'd like to do today to get started. This morning, we were talking about the couple different things. One, we were talking about watches like this and this that were done by extremely talented watchmakers. These two are by Daniel Roth. Now, in this one, there's this retrograde with the hand date on it. This had a base movement of an ETA. And so, all right, well, you sort of wonder, well, what part did Daniel Roth really play in this? And the answer is, yeah, he designed the shape and a few other things like that. And if it's a retrograde, he probably did that too. So, that's one of the things we have. And the idea behind it, and I think it's a great idea, is to make it affordable. I mean, here, if you take a look at Daniel Roth, he still makes them, and you have these double tourbillons, and he's basically doing exactly what he wants to do right now. They're over $100,000. And so, and you got to wait in line. I mean, it's the same thing that you'd go through with Roger Smith. There's years you have to wait for his watches. Hi, Thomas. And with this one, he may have done the movement for it. I'm not sure. He could have, but you don't know for sure. This is made with white gold, and these things they got real expensive. At one time, they were fairly reasonable, and then they sort of went nuts. One of the problems was probably because of the price of gold going up, but I'm not sure. Hey, Thomas, how you doing, man? Anyway, and then we talked about the other thing was something else that came about, and this is I think probably from the 90s. That's my guess, maybe early 2000. This is the Gondolo from Patek Philippe. Now, this model I think is called the 5024. Okay, and a 5024 was a perfectly good wind-up watch, and which I happen to like a lot. Well, they came out with another one with a shaped movement called the 5124. And then they had these other letters after them meaning different things, like this I think was G or J for gold, white gold. And they had another code name, I think, for yellow and rose gold and so forth. Now, the question that I sort of wanted to talk about today was that we've looked at a lot of these really great watchmakers. We had a video that was up yesterday about the another five best watches. And my God, the kind of complications, the interesting kinds of things that these watchmakers did, and they did them themselves. They didn't stick in somebody else's movement. And what it appears to be is that they're doing it for some kind of purpose. In other words, if you're going to have a movement, you want it to do something in a special way. You may want to have a special movement in it, or any number of different things like that. But given that you don't have to have a great deal of worry about how you're going to make a million of them. So Rolex has got all of this machinery and so on and so forth, and they make 1.4 million watches a year. So they not only have to figure out what they're going to do for the movement. Well, we're going to have a really neat movement. This is what we want to do with it, and we want to keep our Oyster perpetual case so that it's waterproof. And from what I understand is that they don't make many movements, but they make little improvements in the movements they have. What those improvements are, a Rolex fanboy would know better than I. But there are changes, and they like to refer to it as gradual change. Now, other companies, you have different things going on. Like Richemont developed Val-Fluier, which will make movements for different companies. I think they made one that was used by Vacheron Constantin. Of course, Vacheron Constantin said, "No, well, we worked it over so much that it wasn't like the original." However, the same one was used with, I think, Baume et Mercier was the basic one they had that they called Baumatic. And then I think they used it with Piaget or one of the other ones that was owned by Richemont. So their solution was to have sort of basic movements made by a company that would be used by all of the watches that they make. Now, there are different kinds of things going on. One of the really interesting ones is that they have this movement company called, what's the name of it? They made the movement for the latest version of the Chanel J12, and they're doing something that they make it for Chanel, and then what's his name? Tudor also used. So they have some kind of deal with Tudor, and they build a factory for them on land that's owned by Rolex, and so. But the question is a sort of how do they do it? I mean, well, what are they thinking about? Because I don't think that they say, okay, we're going to make a movement and then we're going to just use it on one watch. I mean, if you're a big company, you take a look at, for example, at Rolex. Let's see, now you have the Air King, I guess is what they call it, the Air King, and then you have the Milgauss. They have exactly the same movement. So you can use the same movement in a lot of different watches if you're, a big manufacturer. On the other hand, if you look at the movements that are in Lang & Heim, the ones that Marco Lang made, he must have made, I think, 8 or 9 of them. And each one has something unique and interesting about it. And I don't know what the people who took over Lang & Heim are going to do with those. They're apparently, at least with some of them, you can go in and they'll give you some of the bespoke elements of it, but they're not going to mess with it. I don't whether they have the talent or whether they have the inclination to do that or not. But you're not making them for more than a few hundred watches annually. So this is sort of the kind of thinking. My goodness, let me take a look. Oh my goodness. Okay, well, I got to say hi. Hi, Mark and Roger and Phil and Donald and John and Marita. How are you? Hey, the ranchers here. I'm going to have a haircut by the next time I come out. I was looking like Pippi Longstockings, just hair going everywhere. But after Monday, I'm not going to be. I'm going to be as handsome as Rancher thinks he is. That'll be good looking now with my new haircut. Let's see, what else you got going? Okay, John. Hi, John. Hans. Hello, Hans. How are you? And Megan. Hi, Megan. And let's see. Okay, I think I got everybody. Hi, Mark. There you are. Andrew. Hi, Andrew. Okay, whoa, that is not good on the lungs. I'm not sure. What are you guys talking about? Hope you're feeling better, Rancher. Yeah, we all do. Z-Pack and steroid inhaler. Okay. Wow. Hey, Forbin. The Rancher one had lower respiratory infection exactly 1 year ago. Really knocked me out for 2 weeks. Pneumonia had to be diagnosed with an X-ray, which I thought pointless. Okay, Forbin. Boy, you guys have had it rough. Okie doke. Let me see. Who else is here? Hi, Alex. And let's see. Mark. Mark, hello again. Donald, any word on the fusee and chain clock movement? No, doggone it. Rats. I did talk to my guy, and I was going to call him back, and I forgot to because I've been really busy with a bunch of stuff. But I'm glad you reminded me because I can give him a call and see what's going on. The thing is that he's been super, super busy. And Sunday, he told me Sunday's a good day to call him. So I'll give him a call tomorrow. In fact, I got a granddaughter with a birthday then. So there's got a lot of stuff. Let's see, call. Okay, about the fusee and chain. Okay, for those of you who don't know what I'm talking about here, a friend of mine, Watchmaker, he bought this, I don't know how many fusee and chain movements. And I think most of them are for clocks or pretty big pocket watches. I think there may be some for pocket watches, which I would really like to get my mitts on. So if any of you are interested, after I talk to him tomorrow, I'll probably be able to tell you guys, how much they'll cost and what the different sizes and what's available and so forth. I haven't been up to see him. He's up in Massachusetts. I haven't been up to see him in a while because of the pandemic. I haven't been able to see anybody. So I will as soon as I can. Hey, Michael Westby, how you doing, man? What'd you miss? You'll have to catch it in the recording. I'm not even sure myself. Okay, still enjoying my Hamilton Countdown Chrono Magic GMT caliber 14. I've got an old pocket watch with an 8-day Breguet movement. I assume it must have a remontoire of some sort. Why? Holy smoke! You got something with a Breguet movement? My God, that's something special. I don't know if it would have a remontoire in there or not, but boy, I tell you, that really sounds neat, Alex. Foreman still digesting that Gerbil Force GMT quadruple tourbillon resonance explanation. Boy, that thing that's a lot of watch. I hear fusee and chain and start getting anxious. Yeah. There was a watch. What was I looking at? Somebody had a watch I was looking at just a couple days ago, and they had a fusee and chain in it. And I was really surprised to see it. The problem with fusee and chain, for the most part, for a wristwatch, they're too big. Okay, so let's talk about movements that have been developed by some of the big companies, more or less recently. Megan, oh no, get your food and drink ready. I'll have an next live. Okay, all right. Hasta la vista, Megan. Okay, let's see what's going on. The Elgin was double-sided. Second or back side had a separate chronograph. Wow. All right. Now let's see. I just wanted to sort of shift things here. And that is that what motivates a company or a group, okay, to develop a movement, a mechanical movement, or to make changes in it. Let me go back to the one that I had here. Where is it? Yeah, this one. Now, the difference between the movement in here, which is called the fifth, and the name of the watch is called the 5024, and then they made a new one called the 5124. And they look a lot alike, but the movement really was a big change, and it went to a shape movement. But the thing about it was when they went to the shape movement, this is about, I think, around 2007, más o menos, okay, right in that neighborhood, around 2007. And then they started using, at the same time, all of their watches started using silicon. So we're talking about, 14 years ago. And since then, most of the Patek Philippe have gone for silicon. All right, now, so you say, well, silicon is better. Yes, that's true. Silicon handles the heat and cold better than metal. It's less magnetic. In fact, it's totally non-magnetic, so that's a good thing. And so they put it in as for a hairspring, and then they put in an escapement, also silicone escapement. And the point is, okay, so they did that, and not. I don't want to sound like a Luddite by saying, oh, well, you shouldn't be using that. But when we consider the hobby we have, we've got our iPhones, all right, and that's perfectly good. Or even my Fitbit is going to keep perfect time. I mean, so yeah, we got that one covered already. Plus the fact that I'm looking at my computer and it's got, it's hooked up into an atomic clock somewhere. And so by saying, okay, well, we can do better if we have a silicone hairspring instead of using, a metal one. I don't think you're ever going to see silicone in watches by Caribou and Lonnen and Gronfeld and some of these other ones. I would add F.P. Journe, but F.P. Journe was at a company in New York I think it's called a Firehouse. Why it's named that, I'm not sure. I think they probably set up their company at an old firehouse somewhere in New York. And what there's F.P. Journe there in his bubble suit or whatever they give him when you go look at their manufacturer, and they're manufacturing silicone hairspring. So I'm like, what are you doing that for? And yes, it's better. This is somehow that seems to be. Yes, that's better. A computer is better than a mechanical clock. A quartz is better than a mechanical, a traditional mechanical. And so I think what we can talk about is that, all right, so you can go one way or the other. Now, what Rolex developed a silicone hairspring. They developed it with Patek Philippe and Swatch, of all people. Now, Swatch uses them in their Omegas and I guess some other things, but okay, not so. I mean, that's not very exciting. It's sort of thinking, well, all right, so we've given up, and who wants to pay hundreds of thousands or even tens of thousands of dollars on a watch that's got piece of that kind of technology in it. Anyway, but they do that. Okay. Key wound computers. Yeah, that would be cool. Hey, Crappy, how you doing, man? Hans, let's see. Okay, considering they are using silicon purely as mechanical material, isn't it the same as exotic metal? They are not using it as a resonator, for example. Well, Alex, isn't the hairspring the resonator? That is where you get your oscillations from, and you have to set it for a certain, whether you're going the number of semi-oscillations that you're going to have in that. Now, like I said, it's like, well, it's still mechanical. And so is I suppose you could say, yeah, so is the spring drive that to drive a quartz regulator that's in a Seiko. Like I said, I don't think you're going to find that kind of material in a lot of the different watches. And we're not talking about, a junky company when we're talking about Patek Philippe, but Patek Philippe, they're knocking out about 50,000 watches a year, which is, pretty good volume to move. And certain models they have, you got to wait in line for those, just like Rolex, except Rolex did something interesting. They have their own silicone hairspring, but they elected to keep their parachrome in their main watches. The only thing with a silicon hairspring in a Rolex is in the Pearl Master or Pearl Diver, something like that. Hi, Sean. How you doing, man? There's more practical. When was the last time you saw a new production automobile with a carburetor? Well, Michael, yeah, but there's a Morgan. There's an example. That's why I like Morgan. Morgan uses a lot of the old-fashioned stuff. And I mean, like, why should we pay a fortune for a watch that you can mass produce? By the way, too, it's a lot cheaper to produce the silicone hairsprings. Not that that had anything to do with their decision. Yeah, okay. Mark, yeah, that sounds right. The Zenith Defy. Hey, Defy Labs, this is by LVMH, okay? They're another group that has that. Now, I didn't really mean to get off too much on silicon, but you can bring it up if you want to. But the thing, take for example, one came out in 2013, the other one came out in 2016. And those are I think it's called the 4040 something. It's a hand wound movement that Vacheron Constantin developed. Okay, and they have it in all of their, I think their historique line. They all have this. I think it's called the 2040 or 4040, something like that. And then in 2016, they came out with their 5100 for the overseas, and it was also put in their Quadrille. But I mean, both of them were excellent movements, and they still are, and they use them for more than just one watch. So then springs should only be made of steel by that logic. No, Alex, that wasn't what I said. Listen, if you have the kinds of materials they're made of is niobium and titanium, all right? Now, if you want to argue silicon, fine, use it. I don't care, all right? That's fine. I got computers full of silicon. I worked with silicon for years, all right, as in developing different kinds of smart technology. So I know about silicon, all right? And I know where it is. And these guys have been sending me these, here's the table of elements or periodic table of elements. Yeah, I know about that, okay? If you want silicon, you got it, all right? I don't. And so since I would be paying a huge amount for a watch, I prefer to have something that, with materials such as, for example, the one that H. Moser has from their that they've developed, and it's used widely. When I was talking to the CEO of H. Moser, he was telling me, he says, a huge amount of our business is, we're talking about 50,000 or more of that from a company that has maybe 2,000, 2,500 watches a year from H. Moser at Company. Now, also, when you look at Apotheca, which they have something, they make like 300,000 hairsprings. All right. Now, none of those are silicon. And then I'm sure that, like I said, I'm not arguing that silicon's not a better thing to use. I'm simply saying it belongs in computers and not in these fins. Okay. Hi, Brian. How you doing? Brian, it's really neither. It's sort of like, okay, why don't we use quartz? Okay, and I think Seiko showed us perfectly how to do it with a very sophisticated technology to develop the what they call it, the spring drive. Not interested. All right. And you can get a more accurate watch, but they can't get it more accurate than my iPhone. So, but the question is going back, is that what goes into the decision of a company to develop a new movement, as opposed to if you take some of the watches that we looked at were excellent watches with things that I've never seen before. The one that I think Jaeger-LeCoultre had with the um, oh, what is it? The differences between the minutes by the sun versus the what they call the civil standard minutes. That kind of movement, that is remarkable. Now, what you have with the big companies is that do you have anything like that? And the answer, I think, is yes. And Vacheron Constantin just came out with a set of bird watch. Really, they're little, sort of very interesting little watches. And none of the watches they develop are use silicon. Why don't they? Well, the guy who's in charge of their movement development. By the way, too, he has a talk on the Horological Society of New York. He talks about why they use the techniques and so on and so forth that they do. They had one guy work for 5 years on this recent watch that they made. They had 3 guys work for I don't know how many years on the most complicated mechanical watch, which was beat out the one that Patek Philippe had, that beat out the one that El Leroy had. But the point is that is that really? I mean, what are they? Are they doing innovation? I mean, here's a good example. I don't think any of the big companies are the ones that are owned by the groups have a repertoire egalite. I don't. There may be one with the Alonga, but I don't think so. Whereas you'll find several of the independents who have them in there. Okay, let's see what you guys have to say. Andres, I think Vaucher makes what they call seeds that are made to be base for other brands to tweak into their own designs. Andres, yeah, they have. See, the Vaucher is owned by the Sandoz Family Foundation, but they also own Apotheca, which makes their hairsprings, and they make 300,000, and there's nothing near that amount of watches made by Parmigiani. Yeah, you need your watches to have different characters, otherwise buy a quartz watch. Yeah. Why is it Big Ben quartz? Tradition. Okay, what if 3D printed? Yeah, now that's a good question, Alex. This is something that I think is we're not far from that. The 3D printed cases, I think those are not uncommon right now. And there's a company, boy, I can never remember the name of it, but it's owned by Festina, and Festina is one that they also own Soprod. And they also own the rights to Teletime that went out of business, or Technotime that went out of business. And so what they did is that they used a lot of 2 things. One, I think they used 3D printers, and they also used nanotechnology with the computers doing all the work for them. So that's another thing that, what's going to happen to the sort of the craftsmanship. If you're an art, let's say you're art collector, and somebody comes up with in fact, there probably exists right now with a computer that'll do all kinds of artwork. If you want a Van Gogh, that'll do a Van Gogh for you, or any of these others. Now, are they worth anything? I don't think so. So you make out of it. Hi, Ronan, what's up? Isn't the question of where we as individual collectors draw the line on the type of watch we want to collect? Exactly. Ronan, I agree with that 100%. Listen, you guys, I've got a dilemma here. There's a watch I really like that it's got silicon in it. And I'm debating because it's a kind of watch I'd probably wear a lot, and I like that kind of watch. It's hand wound, which I also like. It's all kinds of things I like about it, but put that blasted silicon in there, and that sort of makes me mad at it. I don't know. Don't joke it up. Tradition, nostalgia, huge aspects of luxury. Yeah, I agree, Michael, with that. I've been in the morning embedded electronics and myself for over 20 years. I was in it for 45 before I retired, Alex. So don't, I mean, good grief. I was talking about, let's see, how they planned the movement designs to sell for other brands via Vaucher, not the hairsprings. I'm with you. Luxury watches must be restorable, not replaceable. That was another thing. This is another problem. There's sort of the good side and the bad side to it. This guy, who was a former judge for the Grand Prix, was telling me about a meeting he went to in Germany, and everybody was really excited about the silicon hairsprings. I thought, my God, I said, well, he said, well, they do this and this and this, which I know perfectly well. But then I said, well, you guys can't adjust them, can you? And this is a guy who's a watchmaker and does all kinds of stuff. And he said, no, he can't. Okay. Performance and tax is also a luxury. Well, and sort of the lumpen proletariat it is. Oh, ask a speaker design engineer. No, we're not talking about a design engineer. We're talking about irresponsible watch collectors, okay? Let's get this straight. The kinds of things that are fun to have aren't something that you can crank out, and the whole notion of craftsmanship. Now, from the programming side of the equation, that's where I spent most of my time, there's elegance in programming. There really is, and I understand that. And there's junk that we used to call hacking exists too. If Bin Bin was powered by quartz, it would have to be a boulder-sized piece of kryptonite. It probably would. Okay. All right, guys, let's see. The Parachrome blue hairspring is made of two elements, niobium and zirconium, right, plus oxygen. Is that something you'd prefer to avoid? No, Brian, and not me. I mean, see, this is what I was just saying, is that you had the choice, and because Rolex has both of them. The Parachrome hairspring is, like I said, made of niobium and zirconium. Why niobium? Because it's non-magnetic. Zirconium, I think, is as well. Same thing that if you look at the H. Moser hairsprings, they're made of niobium and titanium, and some other kind of secret sauce they put in it. But okay, rats. We're out of time. Anyway, the Egyptian pyramids were originally coated in silicon. Yeah, they were. It was it silicon? It was something smooth that was really cool they had on it. We're not that irresponsible. Oh yeah, we are. I gotta tell you, Michael, we're really irresponsible. The amount of money that some of these watches have are just crazy. Aren't being cranked out. They're not being cranked out. Okay, at 1.4 million a year, that's not cranked out. My mistake. Let's see, Hans. What about the jewels? Jewels are, no, they're man-made. I know that. Yeah, time for the frying pan. Okay, guys, let me see what Andres has, and then I'll sign off. Look at the example. Omega sells their Meta's moon watch with silicon. They do for half the price of their 321 Ed White, which is not equally tested for accurate. I'm with the 321. Anyway, okay, gentlemen, thank you all for attending. And I'm glad we had, I like it. We disagreed, but we didn't call each other any names. Okay, the guy, I didn't get called a Pippi. What Poppy Long? Pippi Longstockings once. So anyway, you guys take care. and be safe. And again, see you later.